Hey guys, welcome to The Real Shit with Britt and Whit. This is Whitney.
And this is Brittany.
And this is the podcast that's here to make you feel normal in your everyday life.
Guys, hello! We're back again, filming live. We have an amazing guest with us. We're so excited for her today. Whit, why don't you introduce who we got here?
Great. So Britt and I are coming into this episode without watching the TV show. We kind of wanted to have our lovely guest, Nicole, on and come at it with like a fresh view and a little bit, we just didn't want to know the whole story. So, and the whole edited version of what's on TV. So we're very excited to have Nicole with us. Nicole, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, where you grew up, kind of what got you to here?
Yeah, I grew up in Oregon, so not a Utah girl.
Okay.
But met my husband here. My family moved here my senior year in high school. So
oh wow,
a little bit of like a backstory. I was put in foster care at age 17, and then like the next day after my mom got custody back, she moved us to Utah. So then I went my senior year. I went to Mountain View High School in Orem, and then I met my husband at college at UVSC. At the time, it's UVU now, and and then just got married really quick. He proposed after 2 months, which was like
so Utah.
Yeah. Really, really quick. And then our engagement was like 3 months. So we were married within 5 months and then got pregnant 3 months into marriage. And so it was just like boom, boom, boom.
Yes.
And looking back now, I'm like, oh, we were crazy, but we're here. So we have 4 kids and yeah.
Okay, what are the ages of your kids? We know nothing about Nicole, so this is like we're meeting her as you guys meet her as well today.
I have a 5-year-old little boy. He's almost 6, and then an 8-year-old boy, 13-year-old girl, and then a 16-year-old boy.
Okay,
yeah.
So you're kind of like me.
You got a range.
You've got the range.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
that's how I am at
teenagers
home too.
And like little ones.
That's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All the stages. That's what I say too. I've got like teens that are going nuts, and we're trying to navigate mental health, and then we're potty training, and there's like all the.
We have a dog. You know, that's a
Well,
whole
you
nother
gotta
child.
You gotta throw a pet in for sure. Yeah.
So being from Oregon, not being from Utah, I resonate with that. I'm not from Utah as well. Do you love it here? I have to know. I always ask people that.
Yeah, I do. I love it here. I mean, we've traveled around a little bit for like when Matt did like summer sales and stuff. So we were in Pennsylvania and we went to California.
That's where I'm from.
Yeah, like we went to different places. So where are you from?
From Pittsburgh area.
Okay.
Yeah. Latrobe, for those of you who know what that is.
Yeah, we were like near Scranton.
Scranton?
Yeah, which was what, like on The Office? Yeah. So we were there just for like a summer, and
okay.
I'll be honest, it was kind of a beautiful little area with like lots of greenery, but I hated it. Like I was so homesick, you know, like so homesick, and I had a little tiny, child and didn't know what to do with him in a place that I didn't know, and I didn't have a car. So yeah, we've traveled around, and I like that. I like that I know a lot of, different places because of that. But I do feel like Utah's home now. I love Utah. I love that it's very family oriented, and I love the mountains, and I love that there's like kids everywhere, and so my kids can just like go out and play with neighbor kids and stuff. So
yeah, it is a good place to raise your kids here. And hearing you say like you went into the foster system and things like that, I mean that we don't need to dive into that, but it just sounds like you've been through it.
It was like part of big part of who I am.
Yeah, you've been through it. And Whit and I are we're going to talk about that. We've got a healing series coming up of just like how our childhood creates so much like trauma and how we've got to heal through a lot of these things and different things we go to. So interesting. I feel like we need to maybe have you on for another episode sometime.
Yeah. Oh, I'm all about childhood healing. Like, healing the inner child.
Yes, for sure.
So Nicole, many people here in Salt Lake might know who you are from being on this reality TV show called Sold on Salt Lake City. But many of our listeners will have no idea what this show is. Yeah. Whit and I have not watched the show, you guys, purposely.
Not yet. Yes, we purposely did not watch the show.
Yeah, because like
we
Whit
wanted
said,
to come into this fresh eyes.
Yeah. We want to hear Nicole's story, like I just think with reality TV, like there's so much editing and different things and preconceived notions, and we wanted to come in with like a clean slate, not knowing.
Yeah. It can kind of make you pick sides blindly a little bit, right? Yeah, because you don't know every single detail. You just know the way that they were portrayed or the way that it was cut.
You're only seeing what they want you to see.
You are, and it's crazy, like having people judge your life off of like this small edit or clip that you're like, you actually don't know me. Like, hi, nice to meet you. Like, you actually don't really know me. But you just know like a little fraction of some crazy stuff that went down on the TV show.
And I wanted to, have you been on a podcast before since
this is my first time.
Okay, yay. Yeah, I wanted to create this space for you too, especially we have a lot of local listeners, people in the Valley who might think they know your story from watching the show, but they really don't. And so why don't you kind of take us all on a little journey of like, how did you and your husband even get to the point of being on this TV show, first of all?
So my husband joined Presidio. It's a brokerage. Jen Yo is the broker. And he was at a different brokerage, and then he met her and just was like, I just really feel like I'm supposed to be here. So he had, jumped over, which was kind of scary because he had gone from jumping different jobs, and then he got into real estate, and then he was kind of like trying to figure out where he felt like he belonged. And he's just like, something just like my intuition is just telling me like I should be here. And so they hit it off pretty quick. Like they formed a friendship. And then she went on a show called, I don't know every detail I'm supposed to share. Hopefully this is okay. Oh. She was on a Bravo TV show on Below Deck.
Oh, okay.
And so she had talked just like one episode, I think. So she had gotten to know some of the producers, and they were like really intrigued with her business and everything. And so that's kind of how that all happened. And so she had just gone to Matt and been like, I would want you to be on this with me. And so that's just kind of how it started. That process was actually like, I don't remember the exact timeline, almost 3 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Okay. Yes. Wow, so it was a long time ago. So we were like, we didn't even know if it would happen. It was just kind of like, this is weird. Like oddly, there's this weird intuition where it felt like it would. Like we were like, this is going to happen. But we had no idea. I mean, there were so many like casting interviews and all these hoops and processes and everything that we had to go through. And so until it finally came together. So it was a while. When it was all happening, I was so excited for my husband because I was like, I know how hard he's been, wanting to really break through in his career. And I just thought this is such an opportunity for him to break through in real estate and kind of get his name out there. And so I really just thought it would be just real estate, an office drama. Yeah. And I was like, I'll be on it like just a little, like I'll be in the background at a party. Like I really didn't think I would have any part.
That's what I was going to ask actually. Like as a spouse or partner or wife, like if your husband came to you and was like, hey, we're going to be on a TV show or I'm going to be on a TV show. Like what would would you be, because some women would be really intimidated and some women would be like excited. Like,
I think I'd be more like Nicole was like, okay, good for you. Like, that's great. Go and do that. Yeah. I feel like I probably wouldn't, I would feel like I wouldn't have had a big role in that either. Like, you go do you, I'll support you.
Yeah.
Okay. Like you think you're going to just be in the background
sort of thing.
I really was like, I feel like I have tapped into my intuition more the last few years. For a while, I kind of lost that and was, struggled internally. But there was just this inner intuition of like, I really think you're supposed to do this. Like, I'll support you in this. I was doing network marketing and had become pretty successful at it actually. And my goal with that was to support him as he started real estate. Because, when you start, it's like you don't have this funnel yet. And so I was like, I'll do this and I'll support you doing that. And so it was just really like, if I could make an extra $1,000 a month. And then I was making that. And then it was like, well, maybe if I could make like 2,000, I was making that. And then it just kind of kept going up. And I was like, hey, maybe there's something to this. And I kind of started to fall in love with the business side of that. And so I was doing that. And then, so for me, it was like, I would love for him, I want him to really rise. Like that was always the goal. Like I love being a mom. I don't want to worry and stress about money, but money isn't like this massive end goal for me. Like I really love connection. I know me and Britt talked about that a little before. Like I love to connect with people and I love people and I want to really help people like heal and just feel loved. And I felt like I could do that in network marketing. So it was kind of like this inner gift that drove me to know myself. So it was actually a massive blessing for me because when I had started it, I was struggling a lot with like depression and not really knowing who I was, kind of lost myself in motherhood and was kind of struggling with like past traumas in my life of like, who even am I? And I didn't really feel like I belonged anywhere. So it kind of gave me like a voice. And I started doing like a lot of like listening to a lot of podcasts, doing a lot of personal development. And I started to feel like I found myself again. So it was a massive blessing. So amazing. It was kind of like this like journey we've both been on of supporting each other and trying to find who we are, I think. And I don't think a lot of couples talk about that, right? Because it's kind of like you see other people from a distance and it just kind of looks like they have it figured out.
Yes.
And,
the perfect love.
but we were like, we don't have it figured out, but we're willing to just kind of go all in, you know? And I think that's part of having families young. Like, we don't give ourselves enough credit. Like, we started out with, I was telling my husband this just like this week, I'm like, think about it. Like, yes, we've had a lot of struggles the last few years, but we started out not really knowing how to make money. We had like minimum wage jobs. We were in college. We didn't really know who we were. And then we had a baby, and then we had like all these kids, and we were just trying to like figure it out. And somehow we've managed to like buy a home and keep our children alive and fed and loved. And so to me, I'm like, you know, we really are doing important work, even though from the outside or like on Bravo TV, you know, it looks like we are just like sinking our ship. And I'm like, hey, you know, sometimes you got to jump ship partway through and get on a new boat. But yeah. So.
Did the show ever actually come into your home or anything like that? It did. Okay. See, that's why I'm excited to watch after I talk to you, but like, I love not knowing any of the details. So, okay, let's dive in a little, Nicole. I mean, tell us what happened on air that kind of rocked your world and changed life as you knew it. For those who have no idea what's happening here.
Yeah. Can I start a tiny bit with the backstory?
Of course, yes, please. Okay. Love it. Anything
just so that it kind of makes sense. So, I was going on kind of like a spiritual awakening, you know, like working on myself, like what I talked about, just like podcasts and kind of diving deeper into who I was. And about like 2 years ago, I was really starting to tap into like me, like who I was. And around that time, we had just filmed the pilot in May of 2023, I think. And the pilot isn't even, you won't see the pilot. It's not even, there's like a quick flashback. But, and so we had just filmed it, and I just remember looking at Matt and being like, something's off. Like, I feel like I started to know myself enough to be like, something's off. And so I had gone to him at the time and just said, are you looking at pornography? And I was so scared because I kind of like internally kind of felt like he was, but I was scared to actually confront it and to be like, let's go inward. Let's look at this. And so, you know, I knew right away from his face and just everything. I was like, okay, he is. And so we had started working really deeply on our marriage in 2023. And we didn't really know if things would work out. We contemplated divorce. You know, he had felt like he had messed up too big. I didn't really understand why, but I just said, you know, I believe in second chances. Like, let's just start over. Let's just see, you know, let's just date. Let's start exploring, kind of thing.
Can I ask this really quick? Yeah. Because I've had a journey like this myself. Was there anything that had come out before this, or did you really just have an intuition of like, I feel like I need to ask this question?
Something's off.
Out of nowhere.
Yeah.
This is personal. Ooh, I don't know.
You do not have to answer.
There was a situation during the time that we were filming and meeting with producers where there was this really odd vibe from a girl that he actually did nothing with, but I picked up on it, and I felt like I felt like when I talked to him about it, I felt like there was defensiveness.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, what? Like, so I think that kind of sparked it a little bit for me. Nothing ever happened with her, like, at all. But it was just that kind of like made my antenna go up a little bit of like, oh, this is interesting, you know? So that kind of started it. And then I'm like working deep in my marriage, like really, really deep, you guys, like soul work connection in my marriage that summer. And around the time, my best friend and business partner, our relationship just started disintegrating. And I didn't even really quite understand why, because some of the things just didn't make sense to me. But energetically, you know, I started really trusting energy and just being like, something's really off here. And so I actually like went from that summer into the winter. I didn't even recognize I was in grief until probably December. I was like, oh, I'm experiencing grief. Like, I feel like there's a part of the old me that's dying. Like, I'm not the same person anymore. Like, I'm having this spiritual awakening, but this old me is dying off, and
Mm-hmm.
and my relationship with my husband was actually starting to blossom. Like we were having like a lot more connection, and he was treating me differently, and he was pornography free and like all this stuff. And then we started filming March, I think, like beginning of March. And I was like, okay, here we go. Like, this is so interesting. Like, cause I was kind of like starting to feel this intuition to let things go in my life. Like at the beginning of the year, I always pick a word, and I just had the word come to me, speak. And I was like, that is like the weirdest word of the year I've ever picked. Like, what does that mean? And now, like hindsight, I'm like, oh my gosh, like a little bit of a backstory on my childhood is like I really struggled with speech. Like I was in speech because I couldn't pronounce words right, and I struggled and was in special classes, and so I really struggled to speak in public places at all. And I think that it was deeper than that though. Like the word speak was more of like speaking my truth and like starting to actually like be me and not to people please and not to like speak up, be who I am, like whether I lose people or not. And so at the beginning of 2024, I was like, okay, my words speak. And I had said this little prayer and just said, like, I decided that I was going to go through all of the crap in my basement and get rid of whatever I wasn't using anymore, just kind of like detox my house, detox my body. I did a parasite cleanse and love it all. Yeah, all of it. And I was like, God, remove anything from my life that is not for my highest good. Like, just take it from me if it's not meant. And I did not know what I was asking for or getting myself into, but it was just literally like things just started falling away. And it was kind of devastating. I was like, I don't think I'm supposed to do my business anymore. Like, it was just like all this stuff. And I was like, what's going on with, my marriage was getting stronger. But then all of a sudden, like right around that time, it was when everything came out on the show. And pretty much, how do I even say this? Pretty much, Matt, all of us were at all the main cast and their spouses, and then there was a few just like extra friends that were invited of one of the main cast. Her name's Malaysia. At her house, she threw a Cinco de Mayo party.
Okay.
And at that party, I suddenly got really sick, and I was just like, I like have like that gut wrenching pain where you can't really throw up, you can't really go to the bathroom, but you just like you're just I am like sweating, I'm like my body's clamping up, like what's going on. And so I just turned to Matt, and I didn't even talk to the producers really at first. I just said, I need to go. Like, I don't feel good. And so I just kind of walked out. Some of the producers followed me out to the car. They're like, are you okay? Do you need to go home? And I was like, yeah, I think I need to go home. Like I laid there for a while, and then I left. And then everything came out right, like within probably 10 minutes of that.
What?
So, and pretty much what happened is there was a girl at the party as just an extra, as one of Malaysia's friends. And she had gone up to Malaysia and just said, one of the main cast frequents strip clubs. And my sister's a stripper, so she knew.
And the girl who was saying this, her sister was a stripper, and then she came and said, my sister's a stripper, she's saying this.
She's saying
about
this.
One of the main cast people. Okay.
And so, Matt just kind of tore off his mics when he was confronted by Malaysia. You can go watch it, and came home, and there were people there saying like, you dirty dog, your wife left because of this. She knew, but I didn't know. And so he got home.
Like right into
Did he think that's why you left?
He wasn't sure. Like he got home and was like, "Are you okay?" Like I turned to him like I had taken like, some gut stuff and some stuff to help me sleep, and I was kind of like just laying there like almost out. And
you didn't know anything at this point.
No.
Actually didn't feel good.
No, I didn't feel good.
He came home like he's not.
But everybody thought
worried now. Yeah.
So so I looked up at him, and I just knew instantly, like,
something's wrong.
Are you okay? Like, did I say something at the party that I literally thought it was me. Like, I'm like, did I say something? Are you upset? Like, what happened? And he's like, no, it wasn't you at all. It had nothing to do. Like, and I was like, okay. And then I was like really worried about him. And then I don't really remember. I think I just kind of fell asleep after that. I guess he didn't sleep all night. And, he talked to some of the cast members and things like that. And I don't know who all he talked to, but I woke up the next morning, he was just kneeling by the bedside. and he woke me up, and I just like turned and looked up at him, and he just had tears in his eyes. And
like in that pivotal moment for him, like he knew something's like this is
well, at that
out.
point,
like,
yeah, it's coming out.
Yeah.
So.
And so he just, I don't even remember how he said it specifically. He just kind of said, I need to tell you something. I haven't told you the truth. Like, I've been going to strip clubs for years and I never told you. And, you know, the world sees it one way. Like, there's a lot of people online that want to be like, strip clubs aren't a big deal. You Mormons are so suppressed sexually, like all this stuff.
Yes, for sure.
And they want to blame and say that I'm, you know, whatever. And I get that. But the truth is that any form of lies is a betrayal.
That's the betrayal. That's really the betrayal.
It is.
It's the hiding.
It is.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so it's interesting because I think I was still in that, like, what do they call it? Like theta state, or when you're first waking up.
Yes.
And I just looked at him and I just saw the grief. And I had been in grief all year. So I recognized it. And I just looked him in the eye and I think I maybe grabbed his arm and I just said, I forgive you. I didn't even know what I was fully forgiving in the moment. I think I had done so much work on myself that and there's a lot of backstory to maybe that we might not even have time to like.
It's so
over.
hard podcasting because you want to like tell every detail, everything.
Yeah,
that's how we are. We're like, wait, I have to
There's
tell
a lot.
this
Yeah.
2-hour story first before I. Yeah.
There's so much backstory to why I worked so hard on letting go of resentment and anger and bitterness in my life. So like I just had kind of made this agreement with myself, like especially with everything I was going through with my friend and other things, that I just wouldn't hold on to resentment. And you know, as I woke up and came to and we were talking, you know, like, I think I was just in shock.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of I like to seek understanding first, and a lot of seeking understanding and things, but I just, you know, the next couple of days, he was in a very deep, dark place. So a lot of it was just letting him feel it. And I think I was still kind of in that shock state. And then it kind of set in a couple of days later where I was like, whoa,
wait a minute.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I was going to say. It almost probably was a shock state because I think different women handle things differently.
Yeah.
Oh,
like some would have murdered maybe at that point. Like, I don't know. Like, right?
They
like
would have been screaming and then
the rage or
like that's
sure.
because that's your initial thing. And then the talking comes and then the understanding comes. So it's actually very interesting.
That wasn't me at all. I actually was like holding him.
Yeah.
Like I saw the grief and I just held him.
Yeah.
And I just said, I'm so sorry for what you're going through.
Yeah.
And I feel like that is just who I am. I love people deeply. And so I kind of like held space for him in his grief until mine hit. And then he held space for my grief.
And that's why I asked the question earlier of like, if you guys had already kind of been through things before, because this is a tricky subject, right? And there's so much in it to talk about. Like there's a lot with pornography addiction in general. And I think I didn't grow up here. I didn't grow up Mormon. So a lot of that is a thing where everyone says, oh, the Mormons are so suppressed and this and that. And I think there's a little bit of truth to that, but then also it's like, I don't care what religion you are or who you are or where you're from or what you stand for. There's just boundaries in relationships. So if you're going to the strip club with your husband and you're watching porn with your husband, that's something you are on board with too. Great.
It's just the boundary, right? So if you have that agreement in your marriage where you don't care that they're doing this or what, like that's fine. Everyone has different rules.
Yeah.
But it's okay to have different boundaries as well.
But that's why I asked if you guys have been through that before, because I have been in a marriage with heavy pornography addiction and lying all of the time, and just it gets so exhausting and it's so traumatizing.
As a woman.
Yeah, it diminishes your self-worth. It diminishes your, it's your self-love. I have clawed my way out for years through feeling like I'm something again after this. So that's why I asked that question, because it's one thing to just not have anything go down in a marriage and then this hits out of nowhere. But it's another thing if you're like, hey, really? Like we've done this, we've worked through it. You said, and then it continues to come out. So that's why I kind of wanted to ask, like, if you've kind of been on a journey already with knowing he kind of struggled with things. So maybe this wasn't as surprising Does that make sense? Or was it like very...
It actually was very surprising because I never thought he would go to that length.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
Like, but it wasn't, because it kind of made sense too, with the fact that it kind of tied into pornography overall and kind of that lust and being drawn to like immediate validation and the dopamine hit you get, and the things that I knew that he was struggling with as from the summer of 2023 when we were working through things. Like that summer actually is what saved our marriage, I believe, because we were doing so much deep work on our inner child and things like that, that I feel like that's why I could hold him and I could be like, oh, ooh, it makes sense. Like I see you. Okay. And I know that there's a lot of people out there that are like, he's a grown man. He, they know what they're doing. You can't blame it on trauma. And I'm like, don't we all have trauma? Don't we all have reasons why we do things?
Yes.
Don't we all need forgiveness? Don't we all make mistakes? Like, and I was at a point though where it wasn't like I was dismissing it. Like, it's okay. It's not a big deal. I literally looked at him. I don't remember what day or time period, because that whole time period was just like a blur. A tunnel of like, I don't even know where I am or what existence is right now. Like, it was just this like weird phase. But I looked at him and I said, like, I wanted to show him compassion. And I just said, I love you. And I love myself enough not to stay. Mm-hmm. And I really meant that. I had gotten to a point where I felt I don't have to leave in resentment and anger and bitterness. Yeah. I don't have to make this mean anything about me. I did. I went down that the last couple of months, like pretty deep, actually. I feel like just as part of the healing journey. But but I just like had this like inner knowing that this is a lot deeper. Like, this is about like a man healing and finding himself. And I feel like in that moment I had the ability to break him or to help him heal. And so I looked at him as, this is the father of my 4 children. And this is on TV. Like, what do I want to do in this moment? And I just knew, like, from, my childhood, from watching my parents go through divorce, from watching my mom struggle in relationships and with resentment and bitterness, I just knew I didn't want to be that. I saw that path so clearly. So it wasn't necessarily about Matt as much as it was about what I wanted, what my character was, how I wanted to handle it. And so I didn't know in the beginning if I would stay. I really didn't. Yeah. I just knew that I wanted to help him heal, whether I stayed or not. I just wanted to see him as a human being that was struggling.
So I think a lot of listeners would probably ask, so in this moment where this all kind of came out and stuff, people act different ways too, right? So was he...
Well, you said that he held space for you when you started to really feel it, which I think is very important, because I feel like a lot of people get defensive at that point and they can't hold space for their spouse to actually now grieve and go through and what they need to go through
and feel. That is actually probably one of the number one reasons why I stayed, because he never blamed or shamed me. It was never like, well, it's your fault because you did this. None of that. Like, I would say if someone is doing that to you, like, that's really toxic. Like, if they hurt you that bad and they're doing that, like, that would be one of the biggest red flags. Like, this relationship's over.
Because I think a lot of men would say, like, well, you never want to have sex. You never want to, right? Like,
you don't pay attention to me. You don't.
Yes. He did none of that. He actually took 100% accountability.
That's
for
amazing.
His actions. Wow. And it's the number one reason why I stayed. And he listened to every way it made me feel. Every way it made me feel about my body image, every way it made me feel about not feeling good enough, and everything. And he held space for me, and it was never like, how dare you? It was just, I mean, there were times where it hurt and we needed to have a little space for a minute and then come back together. But it was just, he never blamed me. He took full accountability. And that's amazing. I know there's a lot of people online that are like, he isn't taking accountability, all this stuff. And I'm like, that's not true.
You're only seeing,
you don't know what's in that wall.
You're seeing a clip online. Mm-hmm. You don't know what's in the walls of our home. Yeah. So that would be the biggest thing, is like, if your partner is hurting you, or he's done something to betray you, and he's defensive, or he starts gaslighting, or he starts blaming,
can't take accountability.
Me, it's like, done.
Yeah.
Like, and that's where I was at. Like, I was like, I don't need you. I love you, but I don't need you. Yeah. And, I'll sit with you in this, but like, I'm okay to walk.
Yeah. But that's the healthiest relationship. And I think that's when you can make it work, is when you realize you want to be with someone, but you can also stand on your own 2 feet and you don't need them.
Yeah.
So that's why, like, I think I want to take a space for a minute because there's probably a lot of women. I mean, Nicole even said she's had women reach out to her after this of like, I have felt so alone in this and different things. I think that whether you are grown up Mormon or not, men in general, people in general, more women in general, young kids, our young daughters, pornography is such a huge issue. It just is. Whit and I talk about how we always want to do an episode just strictly on this category because it's so big and it is out there. The world we live in, there is temptation everywhere. Now all of our TV shows, all of our billboards, all of our things, everything we look at, our phone in our hand. I mean, it's just
it's so accessible.
It's so accessible.
And it's become so normalized.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I think it takes away from the sanctity of like a woman's worth in her body and her soul, in my opinion. And I've spoken pretty openly about this on my page and on the show and things, but I have strong views on it. Yeah. And it's not to shame women. I really believe that if I had the experience that they had, I probably would be living the same way that they live. Like women that choose to be strippers or dancers or, I probably would, because who am I to judge? So it's not about shaming them. Yeah. It's just about, what does that industry really lead you down? Yeah. What do you really get from it?
Well, and I think
you have to look at that cycle of like, what do you really get
Where's
from
it going?
Where does it really take you?
Well, I think so many people too, like you see this online a lot where it's like, well, if the women wouldn't dress this way or do this thing, we wouldn't. No, well, it's the man. The man shouldn't be looking at it. Let put all that aside, you guys. At the end of the day, this is a real problem and it's a really addictive thing.
It is addictive.
And I lived and walked that journey with somebody for years. And it makes me emotional because it's like, I know those inner feelings of looking at a man that you are with, feeling so terrible for him because you know this is an addiction. You know this is something he doesn't want to be doing. But then being so hurt by it, and then it brings on this entire new journey of self-love that like now you're trying to, and comparison, well, and just...
If a man has to hide it from his wife, why?
Yeah.
Because there's shame.
Yes.
And why is there shame innately when you're looking and lusting after another woman that's not your wife?
Because you have to ask yourself that. Wrong.
But I think too, like as a woman or a wife that's been through this, I think that the addictive part for a woman with seeing other women's bodies, even if they're not immersed in porn, because I wasn't.
The comparison.
I'm not. Yes, it's now every woman I see, I'm now comparing myself.
Yes.
Of, whoa, he loves looking at that. And so there's that and there's this. And then at the gym, I would get really triggered for months and months afterwards because I would be working out and I would see married men looking at me and I would just be like, these men can't freaking keep their mind straight. But I actually have like a pretty open, like, I know in the Mormon religion, it's like the woman is taught that she needs to keep her body very modest for the man.
For the man to keep,
And I have pretty strong views on that too, because I think a man should have to control his own mind. And I don't feel like I need to shame or hide my body either. And so I actually, like I'll wear bikinis and I think that there's a difference between showing a little skin and the intention behind what you're doing.
100%
agree
with
this is not taught right.
Yes,
this is not
it is
right
not.
In the Mormon religion, or I don't know other religions specifically, but I should be able to wear something that shows, a little bit of skin, and it doesn't mean that I'm asking for.
Yeah.
You should be able to wear a spaghetti strap and not have someone sexualize your body because of that.
No,
right now.
No, you leave it. No, you leave it.
I got a little cleavage coming out.
I like it. This is the thing. I think that a woman's body is beautiful, and I think she should feel beautiful in it. And I don't feel like she should have shame around it.
Yeah.
But I just unbutton it. But I think that there is just a line that gets crossed, and it is the intention.
Yeah. It is
the intention.
Yeah. Yes.
You can tell when a woman looks beautiful and she shows a little skin, but her intention is like she knows who she is.
Yep.
She's firm in her relationships. Like, so there's no shame. There's no shame on women's bodies at all coming from me. And people online like to say that I shame women, and I'm like, I actually am such an advocate for women. I do not feel that I shame women. I just have strong beliefs on that industry and what it creates in families and homes, and I'm very, very pro family. So.
Well, and it's why you're doing these. Like, I don't being through what I went through in my past, I
Yeah.
mean, Whit more than anybody knows the
Yeah.
intense trauma I've been through of like not one, but
Yeah.
multiple men I've been with having pornography addictions and other women. And you really break. You get to a point where you break. And I
Yeah.
lived that life where like I would be triggered by everything. So then you come into a new relationship and this is why like so many people are like, why do you stay? Why do you stay? Well, let me tell you something. Because when you don't stay and then you move on to the next, that man probably also looks at women sometimes or has their own other issue or whatever. Like I've lived that, right?
You can take the trauma with you to the next one too if you're not doing the work.
If you do not look inward at why you're attracting men like that in your life or people that are not loyal or betray, you're going to walk right into another relationship that is attracting the same thing. Yeah. That's where, for me, a lot of like my spiritual work that I've done is, why am I attracting this into my life? Why am I attracting people that betray me or are jealous of me or that don't value me or that don't see my worth? Why? And so there was a long period of time where I was looking at this narrative of like, what is wrong with me? I realized that was kind of a subconscious phrase going on in the back of my head. It kind of started to come to the surface. And I thought a lot, what's wrong with me? Like little things. Yeah. If something didn't go my way, I'd be like, what is wrong with me? Like, and it was just like constantly in the back of my head. And it really made me take a look at, okay, wait, why am I saying that about myself, first of all? But also, why am I attracting these things into my life? Like, what boundaries am I not implementing? What red flags am I ignoring? What, you know what I mean? Like, how am I letting people walk all over me and not respecting myself or valuing myself? Yeah. Because I went through a period of time when I was really, really angry. Like, people don't value me. They don't, all this stuff. And I was angry. And I was grieving over things that happened in my childhood or the way that like I felt like my parents didn't see me or whatever. And I was like, nobody's ever valued me. And then the inner answer that I got was, I didn't value
You're
me.
not valuing.
Yeah.
I wasn't valuing myself. I was allowing things for far too long because I didn't value myself. Yeah. When they would say things to me, I believed them. I was in agreement with them.
Yes.
And so I was, oh, that's true about me. So this is probably the best that I can get. And I finally got to a point with my, healing journey where I was like, no, I know who I am now. And I know, and yes, there's still aspects of shame and comparison that would come up and I'm not perfect and I still have to work through those feelings and heal, but it's really taught me that our innate divine feminine beauty is so much more than just skin deep. Like so much more. Like I see these girls online that are, flaunting their bodies and doing those things, and it's not to shame them, but it's like it's so much deeper than that.
Yeah, you're more
it's
than that.
So much deeper than that. And that's what I want to tell women is, yes, your body is beautiful as a woman, right? And your energy, like your feminine energy is captivating as a woman, but you can misuse it. Yeah. And usually when you're
That's good. So YouTube, can we edit that out too?
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
I'm going to start back on that part again. A lot of people might counteract that because they might come and say, well, you're taking all the accountability. Your husband still had his own choice to make actions. But this is why this is such a tricky situation, because in relationships and marriages, there's always these ebbs and flows, and you might be a little bit down.
And as I did that, he was able to really open up, and we were able to see the bigger picture. And so I think that that's what marriages take. It takes like